LP 1069, Winterville, Ayden, Grifton, Southside, Greenville, North Carolina.
You've been a constant friend indeed. You were right there, providing for me.
God bless everyone. You're listening to 106.9 FM on your radio dial. What a great way to start your day. Real talk for real men on 106.9 Awesome Radio. And we have a special guest, a friend of ours. I've been a long-term friend of Pastor Lawson, and I've known him at least about maybe 8 years now, 8 or more. And he is a great man of God. He's just prolific. I'm going to tell you who I am. I'm Pastor Tremaine Forbes, the host of the show. Also, I have with me
Elder Nat Farrell.
Pastor Dan L. Lawson, United Gospel Outreach.
Pastor Cornelius Thomas from Bible-Based Christian Center.
All right. So where's Bible-Based Christian Center?
We're located on the corner of 14th and Flemish Creek here.
Okay.
Right across from the Seder Solar School.
Okay, awesome. In Greenville, North Carolina. Yes. Well, we're going to talk about the fellowship of men. We had came up with the topic, and we thought that who better to have than to have Pastor Cornelius Thomas. He's a pastor, and also he's the leader of a men's fellowship, the Power of a Man ministry. Pastor Thomas, how long has Power of a Man ministry been around?
The Power Man Ministry, we started that ministry in 2009.
Okay, awesome. Well, we're going to talk. I want to read first Psalm 133. Psalm 133, King James Version, and it reads, "Behold, how good and pleasant it is for brethren to dwell together in unity. It is like the precious ointment upon the head that ran down upon the beard, even Aaron's beard, that went down to the skirts of his garments, as the dew of Hermon, and as the dew that descended upon the mountains of Zion. For there the Lord commanded the blessing, even life forevermore." That's amazing and beautiful. I love that scripture. How good and pleasant for men to dwell together in unity. With this show being Real Talk for Real Men, what do you think are some of the benefits, Pastor Thomas, of having services that are for fellowship with men, and not men only and not women in the service? What are some of the benefits of having that?
Well, Pastor Forbes, I believe that when men come together, sometimes without the women's, it become a benefit with the conversations that we have, and the open. Men don't have much tension and much fear. A lot of times, men won't speak out when women's in there, like they're supposed to. In the conversation we can have without wondering that we're saying the wrong thing or the right thing, so we can just feel more freer to talk about a lot of things we talk about that can help each other if it was just men.
Elder Nat Farrell, what do you think about some of the benefits of having those services for men, the fellowship and stuff?
I pretty much think what Pastor Thomas said is kind of covers most of it. When brothers come together, it's kind of like when we're I grew up playing sports, so I know. And don't get me wrong, I'm not misspeaking about what somebody else said. That wasn't locker room talk. Anyway, but brothers, when they're in the locker room, they talk a little different.
They do.
Than they are, when their spouses or, girlfriends or whatever are present. So I think we are freer to express ourselves. And so I think that's one of the major points of us fellowshipping together. A lot of times you might tell a brother that you need something, but you don't want to share that with the women in your life. You see what I'm saying? And so brothers get the opportunity to help each other.
That is good. Pastor Lawson, what do you think?
Well, you know, let's face it. Women tend to have a certain kind of control over us. We don't always like to admit it, but it's almost like, you know, when your wife, you know, you're yoked. You're yoked to your wife in reality, and so you're yoked when there are women in your presence because, well, let me put it this way: when women are not around, it's almost like you have somewhat of a freedom. Now, please don't read nothing into that, but let's face it, it's a reality that when men come together, there is a certain level of liberty and freedom that they exercise that they would probably not exercise if women were in their presence. And I'm not saying that liberty should extend to anything vulgar or anything that was distasteful, any kind of distasteful conversations or distasteful activities or anything like that. It's just that it's just like you know, let's look at it this way: the children. Remember when parents would have conversations and they would tell the children to leave the room?
Yes.
It's not that they're getting ready to engage in something filthy or nasty or vulgar. It's just that there are certain things that they don't want to say around children.
That's good.
Well, let's face it, they are things we don't want to say around women.
We don't.
Can I just leave it right there?
You,
And ladies, you can comment. Feel free to comment. Ladies, men, everybody, you can call in and comment if you like.
Amen.
252-756-2008.
please, hey, look, go in and share this post on your page, on your church, your ministry page. This is a good top. These are some good topics. But and one thing that I love with being that exclusion, I have been part of a robust men's ministry that was at the local church. We had our church probably dynamic, even though our pastor was in a female shell. We turned around. We had about maybe sometimes 30 to 40% of our church might be men. And so, with that being said, we've had that going for us in our church, and so we were tied into some big ministries, and it was something I'm thinking about. This one big national ministry that filled the Falcons Arena, and the pastor turned around and said, "Turn to your neighbor." And there was some women that just wanted to hear this particular preacher preach, and came in. The pastor literally said, "Sisters, this is why we try to have this on our own." So the pastor said, "Turn to your neighbor and say, be a man." And some of them sisters, you could see that part that they've been itching all day to be able to tell their husband or the man they were with, be a man. Or tell any man. They were glad to say it. And I think the preacher, when he noticed it, now when I say this was I ain't talking about 1,000 men. I'm talking about maybe 20,000 men sitting there. And I think the preacher noticed it, and he said, "Sisters, this is why we tell y'all not to come, because the moment you said," he said, "all y'all sisters sit down," but there was something that stood up that ready to say it. "Y'all sit down and y'all don't say anything if you came, because you weren't supposed to come anyway." And when they said that make that man, you do something to a man. Yeah. But see, when a man tell a man be a man, you can kind of say, "Yeah, I'm gonna take ownership to this. I gotta be responsible. Yeah. It's okay for me to say it because my brother's saying it to me." But it's a whole different way. It's an insult when my wife said it to me, when my sister said it to me. It comes out different. So sometimes that, to me, was a very important lesson right then and there. I knew that these are, and then you can see men, they sometimes people say, "Oh, men don't really say much in church. When pray, they don't get up and shout all over the place."
Sometimes they don't get a chance.
So you're gonna start some trouble too. We're trying to be nice. Okay. It's real talk. So, but it's important that we sometimes have the isolation that we can be loud. We can admit that, man, I got this problem. I got this problem at home. We've had brothers that get up and say, I don't know if I'm going home. I don't know. I got someone, and then brothers can say, no, come home. You go home. You be responsible. You take care of that house. What is your son gonna do? What is your daughter's gonna do? And I know your wife said this, but did she really mean it? And that fellowship was been able to talk brothers off the ledge. And you ever had any of those moments, Pastor Thomas?
A lot of times. Yes, lots of times.
That's good.
And Pastor, if I can say this, I was in Florida to a men's fellowship, and we went out for 7 days, and there was, like you say, there was over 3,000 men in that place, and we had the apostle came up. They didn't know what he were. He came up, and the first thing he asked was, is any women's in the house before he talking? All he wanted to know, and all he said was, thank God that my wife won't hear this. I love her more, but I don't know how to tell her because she comments about what I say most of the time. Just like all he wanted to say, but he couldn't say it in front of her because she would always have, why you love me? You don't always say that. So
I remember having, we had one down in my experience at the local church that I attended, and the brother was in there teaching, and they talked about some of everything. I can't even really look over the radio. I can't even really say, but they talked about so much. I know that in my formative years, it was very important to see the men talk and just have that time that they can admit, because it's very hard to be honest sometimes. But even just if you can develop and get a friend, just men fellowship. One of my closest friends is sitting next beside me. I can really say that. I can open up and I can talk to him, even though he's a member of our church. He's an elder, and I respect his opinion. But there's times that I can go to him and talk about things that's on my heart that I really ain't gonna say to hardly nobody. Most men's hearts are like a bank vault. It's hard to get us to talk, and it's better to have a friend that can say, "Hey, look, it might feel that way, but it ain't that way." How about you, Elder? What you say?
No, I think that's true, and I appreciate the words. But there's something I wanted to say. We can come together, but we have to be honest. And men, sometimes we've come together, and instead of being honest, we tend to embellish. We kind of get out of that. One of the things, I guess, if it's a group of men kind of know if you're not being honest too. Yeah. So they can kind of catch that, because it made me think, and I just kind of want to throw this in. It kind of made me think of a movie I saw back in the early 70s called Putney Swope.
Okay.
And it had a bunch of different skits, and they had a skits of three brothers sitting around a table eating chicken. And two of the brothers, they were just kicking it. Boy, I'm the man at my house, man. Yeah, man, I wear the pants. Yeah. And the other brother said, yeah, right. Your wife's so bad, she got you believing that. and it was a funny line, but you get brothers that will come together and embellish, and and you need somebody to kind of check that.
Yeah.
So we kind of check each other. I guess the iron sharpens the iron kind of thing. So, that's one of the good things.
And that's so true. We have to, fellowship is very important for men. That's why you get, sometimes men will go, we don't always talk a whole lot. Some do, some don't. But you can get a group of men together, and they go fishing, and they can just sit there and be just satisfied, not having to say nothing. Somebody gonna talk. You don't always have the talker in the group. But some men, just to be able to sit there and fish and just have that time together.
Yeah.
It's real important. However, so it is very good. You want a good, strong ministry, you need to have men fellowshipping. Let me ask you this. I'm going to ask this to Pastor Lawson. What strategy should be initiated to achieve the benefits of a men's fellowship? What are some of the strategies?
Well, the scripture that you led with, good and pleasant for men to dwell together in unity, and so unity is one of the things that you want to achieve among men, and a good strategy, in order to achieve that, there must be dialogue. There must be the opportunity for dialogue where, unlike preaching on Sunday morning, one man stands up and preach, or one woman stands up and preach, and everybody else just listen. when men come together in a men's fellowship, there should be dialogue where everybody has the opportunity to talk. It doesn't mean that they have to talk, but there's an open forum where men can talk and men can listen to other men, because everybody brings a perspective, everybody brings an experience, and we can edify one another, we can exhort one another, we can we can encourage and comfort one another in the midst of whatever they're going through. I think men fellowship can help men be stronger husbands. When men come together, the older men who have gone through a lot of things can help the younger men in marriage who are just starting out, because there's just going to be a lot of things that they don't understand or they've not experienced yet. So dialogue, open forum, and then relevant topics that mean something to men, topics that's going to generate real talk, topics that men can embrace and say, yes, that's something I'm interested in. That's something I would want to know about.
That's good. Pastor Thomas, would you say are the benefit, or excuse me, what are some of the strategies? If a pastor was going to do it alone, or if he was trying to get with other churches, what are some of the benefits? What are some of the strategies, excuse me, should be initiated to achieve the benefits that we're talking about we need?
I believe that when men come together, especially fellowshipping together, I believe you can see a change. You can see a change a lot of times, and the experience that men has in their homes and churches. I believe you'll see a change when men come together. They learn from one another, and not only that, but I feel that sharing ideas can be a growth for other men. Just by just being here this morning, a couple of ideas that would all have already been shared with me that would help me when I go back into the men's fellowship and talk more. By hearing each one of your talk, so it can be a great plus. It can be a teacher. Matter of fact, just by coming together, it can teach us about what we need to do and what we need not to say. It builds knowledge. One thing it does.
Oh, that's good.
It builds the knowledge, and you believe it or not, it'll cause men such as ourselves to be committed to the Word of God. We men's God. We great men, great looking for what the importance of being a man. The fellowship will grow each and every one of us spiritually.
That's true. That is true. What did you say, Elder?
I think Pastor Lawson said something that caught my attention, that about topics, how we approach the topics that we deal with. And I think that kind of goes into the church in general. We always wondered, and well, not now, but I used to wonder why, growing up in the Pentecostal arena, where churches that I went to were, and there were more women than there were men. And then I come to find that because of the way that the services were done, it appealed more to them with the emotional side. See, the men would come, I would come, and I'm not, I want to hear something. So the topic is important to me. The word coming out is important. Not so much the dancing and the shouting. Okay, that's all right. I'm not criticizing that. Right. That's not what I'm doing. But for men want to hear something.
That's true.
You're going to have to speak to their issues. You're going to have to make the word come to them as to what they need versus their feelings. So I know I was like that, because I'm sitting there listening to the word. What is he saying?
Right.
Okay. You can get up and dance and do all that. That's fine. Worship is awesome. But what are you saying? When I hear a preacher preach and he's, but he ain't saying nothing, and I'm kind of like, okay. and I'm not really interested in that. But if you do that and you saying something, and I think that's what appeals to men. And so I think when we come together, that topic thing is an important issue.
It really is. Well, and on that note, I love that. And it's true, because one thing that I remember somebody that was teaching about preaching. They said first thing you need to give some information. Then you need to give some instruction. Then at the end, then you give some inspiration. Because give me the information, give me the instruction. Then if you got a sweet hoop or whatever, however you do it, then you want to give me some inspiration. And that's how one preacher I know he do. But on this topic, we're talking about real men fellowship. This is Real Talk for Real Men, and we will be back after this sponsorship break. We can't wait to get back to Pastor Thomas.
Here's a minute to inspire fresh hope in your busy day.
Mix two or more people together, and you have a montage of differing personalities, priorities, perceptions, and preferences. This is an environment ripe for conflict. Words of blessing can be squelched by words of bitterness. So who hasn't had that moment when you wanted to throw up your hands in the air and exclaim, "Why can't we just all get along?" We can when we're empowered by God. His word provides principles for peace that can bring about the supernatural result of reconciliation and resolution. One of those principles is found in Hebrews 3:13. Encourage one another daily, as long as it is called today.
This Hope Minute was brought to you by Hope for the Heart. To learn more, go to hopeminute.org.
This your boy Marcus from Mad Millie Painting. We have over 21 years of experience in painting, interior, exterior, power washing, texturing, and more. Now, through January 31st, Mad Millie Painting is giving back 3% of proceeds to cancer awareness. You can help give back in your own name by choosing your favorite awareness. So contact Mad Millie Painting to learn more at 252-955-3748. Email at madmilliepainting@gmail.com. Also, ask about free estimates for your next project at 252-955-3748. Let's start off 2024 with fresh paint and a new look.
Surely in the family, God is with me. Surely in the family, God is with me. Surely in the family, God is with me.
Well, you're listening to Awesome Radio 106.9 FM on your radio dial, and you're listening also to Real Talk for Real Men. We have with us Pastor Cornelius Thomas. Quite naturally, I got the team with me this morning, and we're talking about the importance of men fellowshipping. What are some of the when you think about men's fellowship, Pastor Thomas? What are some of the different ways? And I'm not just talking about in church. I'm really talking about what are some of the ways naturally men fellowship? Where are some of the places men go to fellowship?
A lot of times, Pastor Forbes, I found out that men spend a lot of time in the food places where you can have breakfast in the morning times, and a lot of times they'll just go out where we can have coffee and sit. And the one time we'll go to the park. We had our times we'd go out in the park and go out in the park and just enjoy ourselves. Call in men and set up a time and just go out and just talk about, just be real men, fellowship, learn from one another. And those are the two of the best places I know a man can go to get away from their home and the churches. Have a breakfast or just go out and listen at the sound of the birds.
Yeah.
Just all and talk one with another. I think it's a plus.
Yeah, that's good. Pastor Lawson, what are some of the places that you think about naturally that men go to fellowship?
Well, we can include, first of all, whatever church facility, they worship in, be there with men only. That's a place. And I know most folks would say, well, you want to get away from the church. Well, from my perspective, I like the church. I like doing things right there, right there in the, in the facility where you worship. I live 20 some minutes away from my church, but sometimes when I want to pray, I want to go down. I'll make that 24-minute drive, to go all the way to the church and pray. There's something about praying in the sanctuary. So that's one thing. I don't want to
Okay.
leave that out. And then other, there's always other things like things that men like to do. It depends on what you're trying to achieve for that particular event. Sometimes, you're not necessarily, going for a particular spiritual event. You just want to do some things, where men can just get to know each other and that kind of thing. So you might go fishing, you might go to the gym, you might go out and eat, go on a hike, trip, boat ride. Lots of things that that men can do together. That will just promote good fellowship.
That's good. I had to go to New York on this one.
Well, I'm a kind of take another direction. Well, not so much another direction, just something different. I've been involved with men ministries that did some other things. Like I remember I was working with some of the guys that in the church I used to go to, where we went to this house. It was a halfway house, but it needed work. So the men got together and came and was doing the work. So I think there's things that we can do to help people and do it as a group. And I think within that comes fellowship also. I was also involved with a group, guys, that they took a day and they helped they had put together some things that some of the sisters needed doing, or some of the elderly people needed doing around the house. And the group of guys got together and went and did it. So I'm just saying we can do other things that can help people too. So that's another way of fellowshipping, because while we're doing that, we're fellowshipping.
I remember seeing where some retired gentlemen, they would get together and build ramps for porches. That's their whole men's fellowship. They get together and build ramps for porches, and I thought that was unique too. Yeah. But also, some ways that I think about when I think about men naturally fellowshipping is going, like you said, fishing, hunting, sporting arenas. God knows if the Lord bless me this year, I want to take some of the men of my church to get a professional either football or basketball game or both. You know what I'm saying? If I could get that sweet spot where we can go 1, 2, do this one and then maybe go to another one to the next piece. But I think that it's very important that men fellowship. I was talking to I call him my bishop. He's not well, I guess I call 2 or 3 people my bishop too. But this out of Chicago, Bishop Spencer Jones was just talking, and he was telling me, he has a church that had like 1,200 people before. When he got to a certain point in his life, he just turned the church over. And what he goes from church to church up developing churches. But I noticed that whenever he goes to a church to start a ministry, the very first thing he start developing their men's ministry. He start there because his thought process is, if you get a woman in the church, you probably can get the children and the woman in the church. He said, but if you get a man in the church, he said, almost 80% of the time, the whole family. And you get clusters of people. You get a man in a church, you get a whole cluster at one swoop. And I thought that he said it now. He believes it. He believes it with like a force. I mean, he come at it strong when he do it. And I've seen literally where there was a church that was dying. And what he did, he went in there and they probably had about 20 members left. And in 3 years, he turned around, got it over 100, then he left. He went and started at another. He goes to churches now. And he goes in, and his whole first thing he do, he get it, and he have men services on Saturday. They have a breakfast and they have teaching, then they go door knocking. That's every Saturday. That's what they do. But he's one of my heroes, and he talks real strong. Yeah, he'll tell you right quick what he believes works and what don't work. And we'll have him on a later show. But right now we have Pastor Thomas, and we are grateful to have him on the show. Pastor Thomas, what are some of the things you're also a father? What are some of the things that you've instilled into your children?
That was a good question. A lot of things Pastor Forrest, when I first started out being a father, I didn't know a lot about it. My father was an older man, and he had certain things that he taught us to do as his sons. And being a real man to intake what he taught me and instill it back into my kids wasn't easy, because some of the things wasn't profitable. It wouldn't work for my sons and my daughters. So right now I try to instill more about God in my kids. And when they're smaller, even my great grandkids I have now, I try to instill a lot of knowledge that I was taught. What do you mean by knowledge? Well, that knowledge on how to treat people, especially other boys. Other boys, I take my little grandboy son and I tell him, this is what you do. You don't fight. He won't fight the little girls, but little boys, he want to touch them back and want to, you touch him, he want to try to, I said, don't fight. If you two boys can get together, maybe he has a little sister. I always tell him that you will like it. Now you got two friends. So I instill things into my little, especially my grandkids, how to love one another.
Okay.
And they can, it's so simple.
That's amazing. And sometimes we have to teach kids that you don't never know the benefits of a relationship, how this relationship can sometimes stir to another relationship, and different things. That's amazing. And with this part, since it's lean at this moment, it's real important just having men coming together. If it is nothing else, but like you said, men getting together, I notice now, and I've noticed through the years, that men meet together before they start the day, or, go to Starbucks. I know Elder, a coffee arena. Let me go that way. I got in trouble. But just you go somewhere, drink some coffee, or eat breakfast, or have a good relationship. Just a good friendship. Good friendships are very important. But if you would like to call in, you could call in at 252-756-2008. That's 252-756-2008, so that you can be a part of this Real Talk for Real Men, and we'll talk to you after the sponsorship break.
Make sure that you know the law for your ministry's motor vehicles. It's an important thing to know.
With another critical legal issue for your church or ministry, here's attorney David Gibbs Jr. with today's Legal Alert.
Pastor Thomas had a wealthy member who wanted to buy a large vehicle for the church to use for the senior adult outings.
Praise God.
Pastor was thrilled about this generous gift, but admitted he didn't know anything about any possible laws regarding such large vehicles. He called us at the Christian Law Association. Our attorneys were excited for Pastor as well, and were able to provide him a comprehensive resource outlining the laws as well as the Department of Transportation regulations that he would need to be sure that they complied with. The larger a vehicle gets, the larger the list of complications that must be abided by in the law. Be sure that you know for your vehicles to be covered.
If you'd like to continue today's conversation online, head to our website, christianlaw.org. You'll find all kinds of great tools, including legal brochures, case updates, our e-alert newsletter, and a complete publication catalog. All free and all waiting for you now at christianlaw.org.
Surely in the family, God is with me. Surely in the family, God is with me. Surely in the family, God is with me.
All right, we're back on Real Talk for Real Men on Awesome Radio, 106.9 FM on your radio dial. Listen, if you would like to be a sponsor of this show or any show, you can call to get a tax-deductible sponsorship at 252-756-3137. 252-756-3137. Call on our business line, and our program manager will talk to you. And you can find out how you can give a tax-deductible sponsorship. Also, we just really enjoy it. We're going to put on the Facebook how you can Cash App if you want to Cash App. Our Cash App for Awesome Radio is $1 AWESOME capital R and radio 1069. So that's how we can do that. But we're going to go ahead. I'm going to turn this segment over to Pastor Lawson, and he'll keep the show going for a moment.
Okay, let's talk about smart topics. Elder talked about how important it is to have the right topics when men come together. I think that gives the fellowship some structure. It kind of keeps everything on track, on the straight and narrow, if you will. So I agree that the topics that you pick when you're coming together are so very, very important. And I'm thinking that when you come in with topics, and this also relates to Elder Thomas talking about what he teaches kids and that kind of thing. I think the topics have to line up with responsibility. How do you communicate principles of responsibility? How do you communicate principles of leadership? How do you communicate some of the principles associated with the various ministries that men have? The men that come together, there are going to be quite a few of them that are ministers and have ministries. All of them should be involved in some kind of ministry. When you come together and you decide on the topics you're going to discuss, these things ought to be included. And there are other things too. Maybe you gentlemen can think of some other items that might needed to be, I guess, one of the objectives of the topics you pick.
My thought is this, we, as believers, the topics are in the Word. It really comes down to how you frame, how you bring it forth, or how you deliver it. You understand what I'm saying? Because yes, the topics are there. Last night, Pastor asked me to lead the Bible study, and for something I was reading through the week was about wisdom. And so the topic was about that. And I think it's always a good topic when you can bring it out of the Word. And just to kind of not really get into that, I was talking about, this was in Proverbs 9. We was talking about, sometimes people just want to win a conversation. You don't have to always win. Yeah. Or don't rebuke the scoffer because you end up in a bad place. Yeah. Leave that guy alone. So the topics could be varied depending on where you are. But I think if you come out of the Word, you're in a good place. And it depends how you just bring the topic and explain it and share it. I think you'll do all right.
Okay. Elder Thomas, what do you think about, smart topics? And I mentioned responsibility, leadership, and ministry. Maybe you have some more in mind that you think ought to line up with men's fellowship.
Well, Pastor Lawson, I write a lot of topics for the men's fellowships that I'm overseer. And what I do is I try to let the topics be a beginning piece, so people can understand, even before they hear the speech, they'll know what they're listening for. They'll know what they're listening at. I try to let the topic correspond with what we're talking about. And if the topic's going to be about wisdom, then I try to find a scripture and a passage of scripture, should I say, that will talk and give us more understanding about wisdom. So a lot of times the topic can be like Farrah said, our topic can be the beginning piece to a great listening sermon. I believe that.
Yeah, I like that idea of a beginning piece. I I know I've been in discussions, you know, whether men or women, discussions that you had a topic, but you leave it open, and you end up going places that you had not thought about. You know, something, a topic related to that topic may come up that takes the whole discussion, you know, to a whole new level. I've been in this, you know, discussion, sometimes dialogue, one-on-one dialogue with another person, and we start out one way, and then something gets mentioned that takes the discussion in a whole new direction, and takes it upward to a much higher level than what we were speaking of before. I think a good example would be when we talked about a while ago, we talked about some events that men can do when they come together in a fellowship. And of course, you know, men go fishing, men go hunting, men do this, men go bowling. And then Elder took the conversation in another direction. Well, not totally another direction, but talking about how we can minister and serve when we come together. There's just so many ways that we can come together with that manpower and that energy and go do something that actually benefits someone else versus the pleasure of having a good fishing day or the pleasure of going to a football game or a race car, you know, event. Just going, fixing somebody's front porch, fixing somebody's windows, cutting somebody's grass, that kind of thing. So yeah, I agree. You know, sometimes you suggest topics not as a topic that's going to totally control the conversation, but a topic that could lead to other topics, a topic that's just a starting point that could lead to other topics. So I like that idea. You want to comment on that, Elder? Or?
No, I think that's good. I think that's the whole point in dialogue. When you start the dialogue, then if we're together, we all have ideas. We all bring things to the table. And as we bring them, then we can that'll form the basis for what we decide to do. Okay. So yeah, I think that's a great thing.
How many of you guys remember Promise Keepers?
I do.
Remember the Promise Keepers organization?
Listen, I was going to bring that up earlier about the Promise Keepers. But I remember the Promise Keepers.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead. What's your thought?
Well, I was just going to make this point. You know, they called it Promise Keepers. Great men fellowship that, you know, went to great heights. Now, they still exist, but in smaller groups, and a lot of the groups changed their name away from Promise Keepers. I think one of them is like Impact something. But at any rate, one of the things that they said was that men come together because we can help each other fulfill their responsibilities. We can help each other develop into good leaders. We can help each other do their ministry, you know. And also, you know, they also had the situation where when men come together, a lot of times they were resources because they were so huge, and they had rich people as well as, you know, normal, common.
Yeah, they did.
they had some members in Promise Keepers that were wealthy. So a lot of times there was resource sharing. There were people that could say, oh, okay, you're trying to build a church, we can help you with that, you know. So I like the concept of you're not just coming here with us just to fill a seat or be a part of us, but while you're here, we believe that all of us can help each other fulfill their responsibilities as a man.
You know, one thing that I liked about, I got a question too. Elder, were you ever part of the Promise Keepers?
I know about it, but no, I was
okay, because I do remember a particular ministry you used to go to was really heavy in it one time. One thing I did like is that it got such national attention, more than any other men's thing that I ever remember. And I had friends that had pastors that were part of. I actually met at my local church one of the leaders inside of the Promise Keepers. I met a couple of the people in the Promise Keepers too. Matter of fact, I probably met, and now that I think about it, them and there was a man that was. Do y'all remember Edwin Cole? He had something with men. He had a men's fellowship back in the day.
Sound familiar?
Years ago, because I remember reading his book on marriage. Even I wasn't even saved. My mama had so many books in the house. I just picked it up and read it, and it was a good book about men. But one of the things that I do remember with the Promise Keepers, one of the problems that arose was people got scared because there was a bunch of men meeting. It literally brought fear that Christian men were meeting and getting big basketball and football fields worth of men coming through praying and rededicating themselves to God and relationships. It scared the whole movements. It scared the LG. It won't all the letters then. But all that, what we call the LGBTQ plus movement, it scared women because they like what good can come out of a bunch of men getting together and doing this. And it was, like you said, it was that dynamic that actually caused it to kind of close up because so much money was coming in. You had, when it reached the level of people that played football and basketball and different men on different strata of life got together, it became fearful, but it really wasn't the way people thought it was going. All the men get together. It was no harm to it, but they were afraid of the fact that men got together. They really said, behold, y'all better look at this. Y'all better gaze at this. You better pay attention to this. And they didn't really look at the good. Behold, how good and pleasant. It was good and pleasant that men dwell together in unity. And it's very important that men do that. And not that you get there and then all of a sudden it becomes a political organization of, okay, now this is how we're going to attack people. But when you get men together and they putting their hands together and helping and different things, I even remember right here, and I pass it to y'all. I remember, and I was part of both of them, the men in Greenville got together, and it was predominantly African-American, and they just marched from one part of town to the other side of town. And all those brothers got together, and we went, the men got their courthouse, and brothers just wanted to get up and dress, and they got dressed up, and all the people got nervous with that, and they done it a couple of times, but we got to do more than just, well, I'm not going to say that. I know what the brothers wanted to do, but I know some men just want to get together and dress up. Elder, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, everything is good. I was just thinking a thought. The Christian faith, Jesus, started the first men's movement in Christendom.
That's true.
It was, he picked men.
Yeah.
He started, and he picked 12 men. Mm-hmm. And that started the whole deal. And what has come out of that? It started with those men. Mm-hmm. So I just thought that was an interesting thought. It just kind of came to me that, yeah, you know, a lot of times we look at a lot of things we do and then we forget to look at what was Jesus doing in all this? And he started with men and they fellowshipped as they traveled together, healing folk and delivering folk. You see what I'm saying? So this is what these men were doing. So it can be instructive,
right,
to us. I don't know what y'all think.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I think it's important. I think about all of a sudden when you look. I thought you were going this way, Elder. I noticed that in the Bible when they talked about Jesus feeding the 4,000 and the 5,000, a lot of times people really didn't get what was really being said. It said 4,000 or 5,000 men, not including women, not including the women and children were there. So Jesus was looking at feeding those 4,000 men, 5,000 men. But there could have been probably 20,000 that truly got fed. Because if you read the scripture, it says not including, not just the men, but specifically we counted 4,000 to 5,000 men, not including the women and children. And he performed those miracles. I do believe that when you read really, and this is not excluding our sisters, but when you really feed men, miracles take place. And I like how Elder said, men don't really always get into that. We'll get with the emotional connection, but we ain't gonna stay with it. We'll get excited, yeah, yay, and yeah, preacher, you preach. But then when we walk away, there better be some substance to it.
And just to get into this before we pass it, also, he gave it to the disciples and told them to pass it out.
That's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Pastor Thomas?
I like to, some people said pick it back off that everybody was talking about the promise keeper, and then we was talking about how Ella Farrell was talking about that part, about being the Christian part of it, and the spiritual part, and Pastor Forbes, you really opened up a door with that stuff. It connected the promise keepers with it, and Pastor Lawson was saying the promise keepers, how great they were and the things they was doing. But you notice that they was almost like Adam was when he was talking to the Lord, back in Genesis. He was telling him, let's be brothers, let's be nice to each other, let's keep down strife, let's don't fight each other. He was building a relationship then. The promise keepers was committed, not just to Christian, as you were saying. Jesus fed 5,000, not just the Christian folks who want us. He didn't talk about. He fed all the men and had the men that served them. So the promise keepers was committed. Did you notice that group of men was not only whatever they said they was going to do, they was committed. That's what was everybody would get so afraid about. Not just the money they was getting, but I believe that they was committed. They was having more teaching commitment than anything else towards men. I believe that. If you read it, you'll find out they was really committed by what they did. They said, let's go do this. We're going to do it. Men, let's go. And so all them topics everything y'all talked about came together in my mind.
And it's important when we get together. And see, when we start to do, I like how you said that, Elder. It's more than just getting together and playing golf and, doing this. But when you get together and do, that gets people attention. Just men getting together and doing. Did you know what they did? One person, men could get together and let's just say we went and did an elderly person yard, and people heard that we were doing elderly people yards. I'm just picking that up. When they hear that something is being done, that gets out in the community. Something's getting done around here, and I think that's important. On that note, Pastor Cornelius, you got 30 seconds to just give us kind of sum things up for us.
I believe that men in general, and such as ourselves, should be more committed in what we do. That word really stuck with me, and we can just make a commitment to just being with the brothers and say, brother, this is what we do. We've got to get it done. Let's go get it done. And I believe it'll happen.
That is so true. That is good. And being committed is a very major part of doing anything, to accomplish anything, because we do understand how we do anything is how we do everything. And we want to do things with the right heart, the right intention. And it's been a good time fellowship. It just seemed like the time has gone by.
Amen.
You're on that note, you've been listening to Real Talk with Real Men. Our guest today was Pastor Cornelius Thomas of what church?
Bible-based Christian Center.
All right. And so we thank you for coming and just inspiring us today. And we'll see you next week. You've been listening to Real Talk for Real Men on 106.9 FM. And God bless you. See you next week.